Hi, my name is Brittany Gandhi. I am part of the NNU PhD cohort. I'm excited to be presenting today on the qualitative genre of ethnography. Ethnography, as I stated, is a qualitative study. It's the study of people and cultures within their customs and habits, and that is the Oxford definition. In their text, Marshall and Rossman tell us that it's grounded in the belief that society is structured by class, status, ethnicity, gender, and sexual orientation. So really, we're looking at specific groups of people and different elements of their lives, their cultures, and often injustices. Madison specifically speaks to those who are grounded in ethnography are really have the belief that we have an ethical responsibility to address unfairness or injustice within a specific group of people or cultures. So the intent, what is really the intent of an ethnography? The intent is to provide a detailed, in-depth description of everyday life and practices within a certain group or people, or those belonging to a certain lifestyle preference. The aim of ethnography and those who participate in ethnographic research is cultural interpretation. So how can we learn more about these people to gain a better understanding of them and their culture? Researchers use an emic perspective when doing an ethnography. An emic perspective is a firsthand or an insider's point of view to understand the culture. Which is really interesting because often ethnographers really immerse themselves in the culture in which they are studying in order to have that perspective. So the perspective may come from someone, a particular person that they are researching, and sometimes as they transitioned into autoethnographies, it could be the researcher's perspective themselves. Ethnographies are considered emergent research because the true purpose of the research can actually emerge during the research, and it can often take months. So sometimes researchers may have a specific question that could change based on what they learn about the culture, or they may not know, and that purpose really emerges through the research. So how is data collected? Primarily, first of all, the researcher serves in a participant observation role. What that means is they are partially a participant, but also maintaining the role of observer. So they might become, or they really should become a participant in the life of that cultural setting, while also maintaining that role as an observer. They use interviews often to learn firsthand accounts, as we talked about that emic perspective of the culture that they're studying. And they will often use open-ended but specific questions. They're specific in order to target data that they're looking for. They're open-ended because they don't want the interviewee to be confined to only specific answer choices. Field notes are a really important part of the data collection. And the research from Hoey really talked about the importance of field notes and researchers writing down a firsthand account of everything because they may not know what's going to be important later. They may not know what themes are going to emerge and what patterns. So those field notes are so important to maintain. Another piece of the data collection is collecting cultural artifacts. And this can look very different depending on the culture of which they are researching. This is often a second form of data collection, maybe not the primary, but it is important. Rudrum as well talks about the importance of cultural texts. Some cultures have more than others, and that those texts may play an important role in learning about that culture. So once the data is collected, it's time to analyze the data, and we get into the analysis overview. So researchers use multiple pieces of data as the foundation, as we discussed: field notes, interviews, observation transcripts, and they really study it. As they study it, they're looking for patterns to emerge. And while they identify patterns, they're really utilizing a cultural frame of reference to guide the emergence of those patterns. So researchers are identifying preliminary understandings, developing interpretations, and then finally reaching conclusions based on that data that they've analyzed. Some examples, just to have a better idea of some ethnographies, include City of Strangers, Gulf Migration in the Indian Community in Bahrain. Another is Do Muslim Women Need Saving? A third example is White Bound, Nationalists, Anti-Racist, and the Shared Meanings of Race. So there are so many different ways and areas that researchers can conduct ethnographies, really based on the group of people that they want to learn about. There are benefits and challenges to every type of research. Some benefits to ethnographies are it adds to our knowledge of culture. So we have a general awareness as different societies of cultures and groups of people, but this really adds to our knowledge of cultures and further increases our understanding. Some challenges noted by some researchers is, especially historically, ethnographers have gone to cultures not their own to study them, to try to be unbiased. So as a result, we have not necessarily in our country, in the United States, had many U.S. ethnographies by Native American people and citizens of the U.S. And additionally, another challenge is the participant observer role can be really challenging, with researchers being part of the research, diving into it and surrounding themselves with it, but then needing to take a step back and be the observer. There are many peer-reviewed journals about ethnographies, and a lot that I learned about how ethnographies have really started to shift over time, and as we look at not just race and culture, but also politics and social classes. Some are listed here. So Helen Woodley in the Annual Review of Education, Communication, and Language Sciences, she really gave a review of autoethnography, which is a newer subfield in the ethnographic field. Jennifer Hulachin with the International Journal of Housing Policy, in her article, she really highlights the benefit of the ethnographic approach for housing and homelessness studies. Mr. Kittriell in the communication theory argues that researchers need to pay attention to how they are coding communication in ethnographies. The following three researchers from Community Development Journal really examine whether there are dangers of tyranny present in ethnographic research. So really interesting opinions there. Julia Capellaro in the International Public Management Journal outlines a set of research directions for future applications of the ethnographic approach to the study of theoretically and empirically relevant phenomena. So really future implications and applications. Zoe Callow and Eugene Sadler-Smith outline what the application of an ethnography of communication approaches in management research. And then finally, Sarah Rudrum, who I referred to earlier, really highlights the importance of texts as artifacts in ethnographic research. Include here some of the references utilized. There is a ton of information, and I really learned that ethnography as a field, as a qualitative research field, became more of a prominent field in the early 20th century. And again, it's just really morphing over time as we learn more about cultures and specific groups. And I think that's the purpose as well, that as we continue to learn about different cultures and groups, that our mindsets will shift, and therefore the research genre will shift as we all hopefully increase our awareness and understanding of others. Thanks so much, and hope you learned something today.